All right, welcome on in to the Falls Count Anywhere podcast. Charlie Turner here, along with Chris DiCarlo and John Rosino. Gentlemen, this is the November edition here. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. You guys get plenty to eat or what?
Oh yeah, and some football, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Turkey, football, that stuff. The Bills victory, man, it was a good holiday, man. Good holiday here in Western New York. So definitely enjoyed the festivities of Thanksgiving, and of course we're on the way to Christmas now. So get your Christmas shopping done, fellas. Don't wait till Christmas Eve.
Nice.
Get the yeah. There you go. Very good. And Ohio State ready as well. Gentlemen, of course, we're always talking wrestling here on this show, Falls Count Anywhere. Of course, we're talking classic wrestling as well. We got some thoughts from the Sheik as well on Thanksgiving. We're going to get to a little bit later in the show. But to talk some wrestling with us today, this gentleman that's going to be joining us today is a author of many, many books, including some in the wrestling world, including Bluegrass Brawlers and also Don't Call Me Fake, the real story of Dr. David Schultz. We're going to get into some of that. And he is our guest today. He is an author, Mr. John Cosper. John, thank you so much as he buffers in there. There we go. John, thanks so much for joining us on the Falls Count Anywhere podcast. How's it going today, man?
Oh, doing fine. How about you guys?
Great.
Good.
Doing great, man. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah. It was a pretty nice holiday.
Good.
Awesome, man. Awesome. John, we focus a lot on classic wrestling here on this show. Of course, we talk some current stuff too, but we've talked to some of the gentlemen that you've written books for, but some of the books that you've written in the world of wrestling. What was your initial start to get involved with doing wrestling in particular? Were you a big wrestling fan growing up, and that's an area of interest that you wanted to get into?
Oh yeah, I got into it. It was the rock and wrestling era. I was actually a big 18 fan and a Cyndi Lauper fan. And when I started seeing them hanging around with wrestlers on Entertainment Tonight and hear my friends talk about it, that's when I decided to check it out. And still remember the first episode of Superstars that my dad finally relented and let me watch. And seeing Randy Macho Man Savage make his entrance with pomp and circumstance in that robe, and was definitely a big fan going way back as a kid.
Yeah, definitely similar appeal for us too. Growing up, back in the '80s and the wrestling, the action figures, the LJNs, and then of course you mentioned the rock and wrestling cartoon, and then wrestling. I don't know if you had a chance to see any of these documentaries that air on both A&E and on Vice, but they had one in particular on WrestleMania 1 that talked about how everything just kind of came together with the world of wrestling and rock and roll and MTV and all that stuff. Was that that was one of the things that kind of pulled you in there?
I've seen. Yeah, it was certainly the crossover with some of the celebrities. Like I said, I was a Mr. T fan and Cyndi Lauper and everything. But I certainly stuck around for the wrestling. Got into WWF. A couple years later, every afternoon, ESPN had World Class Championship Wrestling on television right after school, and I became a huge fan of the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. They were probably a couple years old, reruns at that point, but just loved watching that stuff, and was kind of in and out of it, throughout high school and college, and as an adult got back into it. Probably it was 2001. It was No Way Out. It was that the 3 Stages of Hell match, Triple H and Stone Cold. That was the first pay-per-view I ever bought, and still one of my favorite matches. And so I've just been watching it ever since as an adult. And I actually had a friend of mine move in with me for a short time, not long after that, who brought his entire wrestling library. That's when I read Have a Nice Day. That's when I read Bobby Heenan's book and Kurt Angle's and all those and everything. And, and years later as an adult, I've been writing. I've written a lot of different things over the years. I've written, drama for the stage. I've written film. I've written fiction. Still writing fiction, actually, too. But it was about 10 years ago that I told my wife, I was like, I'm thinking about trying something new. I want to write a book about pro wrestling in the city of Louisville. And to my shock, she said, go for it. And I was like, really? She said, well, you love this crap, you're a great writer. And she's not a fan. And she did always enjoy watching Randy Orton for a certain reason, but no,
it's like my wife and Goldberg.
Yeah. So she liked Ray for the flips, and she thought Punk and Orton were hot, but no, it just it just started. I had been doing some investigating online and looking at I knew there was a story between Memphis, Louisville being the number 2 town in the Memphis territory, and of course OVW and the developmental. But I mean, Louisville's history goes all the way back into the 1870s, when they were doing wrestling at the Masonic Temple. And there was an intergender match with a circus wrestler back in 1880 at the Opera House downtown, which is one of the stories I tell in the book. And Ed Strangler Lewis got his name in Louisville because he no-showed. He no-showed on January 13th, 1913. 2 weeks later, he comes into town, and they're like, well, we advertised Bob Fredericks 2 weeks ago, and we told the crowd this guy was Bob Fredericks, so we need to change your name. And they ended up, naming him Ed Strangler Lewis right there on the spot. It made him famous.
Wow, very cool.
In fact, just kind of sorry, Charlie, Mr. Cosper, while you brought it up in my mind, a friend of ours, Mr. Adam Parsons, of course, which I mentioned to you with their library and the Wrestling Legends Network on Roku, and his father, Rock Parsons. I can't wait to see that Mid-American territory and shows he's got coming.
Yeah. I know some of those guys over Wrestling Legends Network, and they've got some really cool stuff up there, let me tell you.
Yeah. And these guys
Chris,
know
I got doing some DVD exchanges with those guys, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's funny, I'm like a nobody, right? But I got a DVD collection, Mr. Cosper, that I grew up. I started watching, 1980, like these guys. WWF, Maple Leaf, Mid-Atlantic. We had some AWA, some Florida around here because we're close to Canada. But yeah, my DVD collection is pretty big, and
He's our resident historian here.
That's pretty awesome. That's great.
Yeah, it's been my life since 1980 and always will be. But more of the classic than today. I can't get into a lot of today's.
Yeah, John, do you watch the current product, AEW, WWE?
I do actually. I've been going almost weekly to OVW in Louisville since August. The weekly schedule with the family shifted, and on Thursday nights my son has School of Rock band, and my wife was there and my daughter's going there, and I'm like, well, what do I do tonight? And my wife's like, whatever you want to do. I said, well, I'm going to go to wrestling. So I've been going every week, and as of the last month, my daughter's been going with me too, and has become completely hooked on it. So OVW I watch. When I get to the gym, I actually usually schedule my trips to the gym on Wednesdays and Fridays so I can see AEW on television. I'm kind of in and out with Impact. I love Impact and just never have the time to sit and watch it and everything. Plan to pick that back up here sometime soon though, just because I really love what they're doing over there. And I did go to Raw actually 2 weeks ago. Went to Raw when it was in Louisville. Madman Pondo had an extra ticket and invited me along, and quite frankly, I enjoyed it. I mean, there wasn't, when I've caught it on television, even after Triple H has taken over, it starts off with, 15, 20, 30 minutes of just talking, and, and you still got the, I just haven't been crazy about it. And, I remember I was at the gym one Monday night, and, somebody's making an entrance and come back to a backstage interview. Then we go to a commercial, and then the guy's in the ring, and then they go to another interview, and they cut to a commercial, and finally another guy comes down to the ring, and I must have blinked or something. I missed, whatever the 30-second match was or whatever. But every match that night seemed to go a pretty good long distance. As they always do when they come to Louisville, they throw the OVW fans a bone. They sent Shelton Benjamin out there. The OVW chant started up right away. Last time I actually went, it was a couple years ago now, but I went to SmackDown, and they sent Shelton Benjamin and Randy Orton out. And, the Louisville fans just ate that one up. So it was a lot of fun. But, I do watch when I get a chance, and do that. There's a lot that I enjoy, but I certainly understand the cries from those who are like, I don't get into it. So.
And if you get a chance, if AEW comes to your town there and you get a chance to go, I went to my first AEW show here in Buffalo back in August, and it was the crowd was a little bit reminiscent of the Attitude Era, not quite as extreme, but a very lively, older demographic than like the more kids-based WWE, and I thought it was kind of a cool atmosphere. So definitely, if AEW comes to town, I would recommend them as well because they.
For sure, they're coming to Lexington, I think, in early 2023. They haven't come to Louisville yet, but I imagine they will. Yeah,
and they did a great job with their presentation and everything. The only complaint I had was it made for a long night because they record Dynamite, they record Rampage, and AEW Dark is like a 5-hour night. And honestly, towards the end, it was some people were kind of walking out of there. And
I can imagine. Yeah, that's a long night. Yeah.
Yeah. But John, what I wanted to specifically ask you about, as far as your books, the one that stood out to me was the "Don't Call Me Fake," the David Schultz story. Just an infamous clip that even casual wrestling fans or anybody that's not even a wrestling fan remembers that infamous slap that took place there. That experience, and did you learn anything new writing that book about David Schultz?
Well, I mean, David's, about half the book is wrestling, and half of it's about his career after wrestling, which was working as a bounty hunter. And quite frankly, as happens with a lot of books, it's the stories outside of wrestling that are way more interesting than the wrestling stories. And I mean, his bounty hunting stories are incredible. Sneaking into people's houses in the middle of the night, putting a gun to their head, making sure there's not a gun under their pillow. The way he all of the skills that he picked up as a wrestler, not only just being able to be physically dominant and and intimidating, but learning how to work people, getting to know grandma of the guy who's on the run and getting to be her best buddy and everything like that. And, letting her know, the cops think he's got a gun. If they run into him before I do, I hate to think what's going to happen to him, and just the way he would work people and stuff. And, that was certainly, I think, the thing he was most proudest of, and wanted to tell that story, even more than the wrestling stuff. So.
Wow. Very interesting. So I didn't realize he's a bounty hunter. How long has he been doing that?
He doesn't do it so much anymore. I think for the right price and the right opportunity, he's still available. He works a lot of jobs right now. He does truck driving. He's got a farm, and just a lot of things. And he's been making some appearances here and there. If you guys know John Wool, Mr. Big, he's done one appearance with him. He's doing another one coming up soon, where I think for $50, you can film yourself on an iPhone being slapped by David Schultz. So he is getting out there meeting the fans, and I imagine there's a waiver involved with that, but so it's forget
Chris, what do you think, man? We'll sign you up for that, or what?
No way, man. And then when Piper slapped Billy Red Lyons, man, that was, and Lord Alfred Hayes, I wouldn't get slapped by either one of them.
I had a great experience with him and Gregory Helms up at the first Starcast, because Helms is a huge David Schultz fan, and we he had this idea, is like, I want to film this bit, and basically it was him doing his ace reporter character from his days as the Hurricane. I'm here at Starcast, I'm looking for the big story, and I'm going to ask the tough questions. He turns around, David Schultz, you got a question for me? No, sir, I don't. It's up on my social. I don't think I've got it on my YouTube channel, a few other places, but that was fun to do with them. And David took some coaxing, but he did it.
Yeah. Now, did he elaborate further? And I'm very interested in this book, and it's one I'll definitely be checking out down the road. But did he elaborate further how the that particular moment, the slap, just altered his career?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, I mean, you get the whole backstory about, that they knew this guy was there. He had, and Hogan had to babyface him the whole day, and Hogan wanted to strangle him. And Stossel just kind of being a jerk to Hogan and everything. And of course he ends up backstage and everything. And, he tells the story about, Vince coming to him, telling him, I want you to blast this guy. And you can see the guys in the hallway. They knew it was coming. You can see Mr. Fuji down the hall, and he's smiling, he's laughing. Nobody's shocked. Right. I actually did have the VHS, the uncut footage of that David had loaned me while we were working on the book. And at the very tail end of it, you hear Vince McMahon, David, what the hell's wrong with you? Come walking in and stuff, acting like he doesn't know what's going on. But, I mean, there were other reasons why David ultimately was let go from WWF. He and Vince, he wasn't a yes man for Vince. He wasn't gonna, yes sir, Mr. McMahon, whatever you want, Mr. McMahon. The personalities just didn't get along there. And ultimately we tell the story too about the night he was let go by Chief Jay Strongbow and everything. So, and he went on a tear after that. I mean, he wasn't on the national spotlight, but he worked Flair, he worked Abdullah, he worked Bruiser Brody. I mean, he worked the toughest guys in the business, and he had a run after that anybody would envy, I would think.
Yeah, that's like I said, quite the infamous moment that happened there. Like I said, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you've probably seen it. The other book I want to ask you about, the Bluegrass Brawlers. Now, is that focused solely on like Kentucky bluegrass? Am I getting that right, or is that
specifically? It's Louisville, and it's Louisville again, 1877 all the way up through present day. I actually released a special, updated edition this past year, kind of filling in some of the gaps and everything. I was able to actually go back and thanks to the Courier Journal archives being online, I've actually got every wrestling result from, the 1880s all the way up through 1960. I want to say 63, 67, whenever it went dark, after Bruiser pulled out before Jerry Jarrett came in. Mark James has got everything else covered from there, so I didn't bother collecting those results. But no, it tells the full story, going back to the days of the barnstormers that would come to town, where guy would come in and establish himself as a local hero and doing weightlifting and things like that, and he would issue a challenge, and he would have a buddy in another town waiting to see that announcement in the paper, and his buddy would come in and do the challenge, and they make money off that. The circus wrestlers, we talked about the intergender match between Ida Alb, this woman from the circus who issued an open challenge to anybody in her weight class to take her on in a 3 out of 5 falls match down at the Opera House. The Ed Strangler Lewis era, the early days of wrestling, and the controversy with doing wrestling in the Armory, which was a government building. Of course, that's now Louisville Gardens. Unfortunately, it's still sitting dormant right now. But the history of that building, the wrestling goes all the way back to 1912, 1913. Wrestling moved into the theaters in the 1920s, 1930s. He had the Savoy Theater and he had the Gaiety Theater that kind of had a rivalry going. Jack Reynolds, the welterweight star, was a big feature in town. The Black Panther Jim Mitchell got his start in Louisville. He was a local Louisville boy. One of the first African American superstars really in pro wrestling. Ultimately went on and had a huge feud with Gorgeous George in California. And then a guy named Haywood Allen, who had been around as a referee and a booker and everything for a long time, started his own promotion in 35 that ran for 22 years. He ran it for 12 and then turned it over to his partners in 1947, and they continued going until the husband, Francis McDonough, passed away of cancer at 57. But that's an incredible story. I actually did a whole deep dive book called Louisville's Greatest Show about that particular promotion, and that's the era of Gorgeous George and Luthez, Mildred Burke, Mae Young. There were bears, there were midgets, there were women's wrestling, there were 6-man tag matches, there were mud matches, there were all kinds of stuff. It's a really great story, an incredible era. And then with the new edition, I was able to go a little bit deeper into the time when Bruiser had the town, and then of course we get into Memphis and the Memphis era, the OVW era, then the independent era as well. Which OVW is still going strong. OVW is I think got a much wider presence, I think, on the internet and around the world even now than when they were the developmental territory. And since he's taken over, Al Snow's just done incredible things with that place. And you look at it, and it's not a school wrestling show anymore. You go back and you look in the old days, it was students, and they were students, and they were the developmental guys for WWE mostly at one time. But he's got Jesse Goddards and Tony Gunn, Cash Flow, guys that are 15, 20, 25-year veterans, that are in there, and they're working alongside younger guys, and helping them along, and everybody's kind of coaching the guys that are below them. And Doug Basham's come back, student number 1 with OVW. He's now teaching the advanced class, and even he'll tell you, he's like, there's one teacher here, and it's Al Snow. He's like, I've learned more working from Al Snow, in the last couple months than I've taught any of my students. So, wow. But Louisville's, it's an interesting town because, it was never a hub. It was always, a part of this territory or that. But I tell people, up through, the ruthless aggression, the early 2000s era of WWE, every major star in pro wrestling except George Hackenschmidt, Frank Gotch, and Triple H came through Louisville on their way up. Every single one of them came through this town. Those are the only 3 that I can really, identify that didn't come through. I'm working with Dean Hill, who was the voice of OVW for a number of years, on his autobiography. We'll have that out first of the year. And Dean's got, Dean took photos with everybody. He didn't know who was going to be a star, who wasn't going to be a star down the road. So he's got photos with Rock. He's got photos with Kane back when he was Isaac Yankem DDS. He's got photos with The Undertaker and Andre the Giant and all those guys when they were coming up. He remembered announcing Stunning Steve Austin. He announced Cactus Jack and all those guys when they were working for Memphis or USWA. So it's the town's got a rich history. The town loves pro wrestling to this day.
That's very
Mr.
cool.
Kasper, can I ask you a two-part question here first? the classic, which Mr. Parsons there has on his Wrestling Legends Network on Roku and other platforms, is the ICW territory with the Paphos, and that's some great footage. And then secondly, want to ask you about a recent guest, Mr. Scott Romer, and his book.
Absolutely, yeah. We do touch on the Paphos a little bit. That's Lexington, which of course is an hour and 15 minutes down the road, and kind of the rivalry they had with Memphis. Don't really get that into that in this particular book because it's focused more on Louisville. But certainly some of the stories about ICW trying to challenge and ultimately the two kind of combined forces. I got to interview Rip Rogers. I've talked to Rip a number of times, and Rip was right there in the heart of everything with ICW.
Quite the character,
and, and the best Randy Savage stories, from when they were traveling together. So, Rip is another guy I talked to with Scott Romer's book as well. Actually, it's funny. He came up in a conversation with my brother recently. My brother, found out I'd written a book about a photographer, and he said, "So, what's this guy like?" Because most photographers I know, they're very shy, they're very introspective people, and everything like that. It's like, that's not Scott Romer. Scott Romer is quite the opposite of that. The old line is, it's not a Scott Romer photograph if Scott Romer's not in it, because he's got probably twice as many photos of himself with famous people as he has of famous people. But I mean, he's got a photo. There's a photo in the book of Muhammad Ali and Dalai Lama standing next to each other. He's photographed presidents and Supreme Court justices. He's taken photos of or with the Prime Minister of Israel and Yasser Arafat, from a trip he took over there. I mean, he managed to get around and be around some incredibly famous people, people that have loved and appreciated his work, have brought him on to do everything from the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame. He's met countless celebrities and athletes through that. His work with the Indiana Sports Hall of Fame, which actually he's being inducted into next year. I mean, it's the hardest thing with Romer's book was narrowing down the photos, because you always go through a thing, and I'm in it right now with Dean, where it's kind of the last minute push, and here's a bunch more photos, here's a bunch more of this, bunch more of that. Romer, it was an avalanche. It was just an avalanche of photos. I actually had to turn off my notifications for them and just look at them at the end of the day. And one of the arguments, because we recently just did a second edition of his book, was whether or not to include a photo of Marvin Hamlish. And he's like, nobody knows who Marvin Hamlish is. I was like, listen, okay.
I do.
Mel Brooks is in this book. Mel Brooks is an EGOT. He's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. There's like 30 of those people. There are 2 PGOTs in the world, people who've won an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony, and a Pulitzer. Marvin Hamlish is one of them. He stays in the book. So, but
great,
yeah. So, but Romer's stories are wild. I mean, he's quite the self-promoter, and rightly so. He's had some incredible stories. He was Dick the Bruiser's son-in-law for a while, so there's Dick the Bruiser stories in there. There's wrestling stories. There's stories about the 2 times he ended up getting roped into boxing. One of them was sort of Rip's fault, because Rip got in the ring with a guy, and the guy was a little gun shy, and Rip's like, all right. Rip just knocked the guy out. They had to help him, quote unquote, get his heat back and put him in the ring with somebody they knew the guy would knock out easy. So, like, Romer, put some weights in your shoes and go stand on the scale. So, there's a great story about that. Where he shows up at the weigh-in wearing sweatpants because he's got like 30 pounds of weights on his ankles so he can make weight and get beat up by a guy who's twice his size. So, but yeah, I mean, Romer's story is quite outlandish and a lot of fun. The new edition too includes a hilarious story about Cauliflower Alley Club last year, when of course, certain substances are now legal in Vegas, and his roommate Carmine Despirito brought in some edibles, and rather than just eating one piece, Romer ate the whole thing.
Oh no!
So got his perspective on it, and Anderson's perspective, and Carmine Despirito's, and it's a Romer story. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, John, as far as getting access to your books, do you have a specific website? Can we go through Amazon? what's the best way to make a purchase of one of these books? That
you can go through Amazon. Actually, David Schultz's book is available through Amazon and not my website. He actually owns that one outright now, so I don't have that one normally on my website. But my website is eatsleepwrestle.com. I've got the Louisville books up there. I've got Mike Rogers' books on Portland. He's published 3 of them the last year. Wahoo McDaniel, Chris Candido, Tracy Smothers, Princess Victoria, Madman Pondo, the original Black Panther, Jim Mitchell, Mars Bennett, Elvira Snodgrass, Lord Carlton. You may not have heard of some of these people, but these people are great stories. They're names that kind of came across, and the Black Panther, Mars Bennett, Elvira are names that I came across in my research and just became fascinated with them and who they were and their stories. Like I said, Mitchell was, the first African-American superstar in wrestling. Elvira was one of the early women's stars in the 1940s. She was Mildred Burke's number one rival for a while. Interesting story about her getting in a car accident and, according to her family, cutting her own arm off to escape from the car that was pinned in a ditch. And then Mars Bennett is one I just put out this past year. She was a circus girl. She became a pinup queen in the late 40s for the guys who liked the muscle girls, and she became a pro wrestler and tragically died, at 35 in a car accident. But wow. Wrestling's just full of these amazing stories. These people that have been long forgotten, and it's been fun dredging up and being able to expose people to their stories and then tell the stories of people more recent. I got to work with Tracy's book with him before he passed away. The Wild-Eyed Southern Boy. I mean, it just a really great read and a guy whose impact really can't be overstated in wrestling. There are Tracy Smothers kids working at AEW. They're working at WWE. People who were heavily influenced with him and mentored by him. Wahoo McDaniel, of course, the master of the chop. There wouldn't be a Ric Flair if there wasn't a Wahoo McDaniel. Wahoo really kind of helped to make him. And then Chris Candido, you talk about a guy who was cut down way, way too young, and probably the one guy that I still watch the most out of some people that I've written about. A match just popped up not too long ago on Facebook from Japan of before he was the great Khali wrestling Chris Candido. And it's everything you want it to be. Chris just doing everything he can and then just selling like he's a dead man for these guys, 3 times his size. So, long story short, get back to it. EatSleepWrestle.com. All my books are available up there. Anything that I've published that I still have the rights to. Right now, is this going to go up this weekend?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, later today.
Okay, today and tomorrow, the Small Business Saturday and Sunday. If you use this coupon code SMALL, 25% off everything, your whole order. Black Friday is the other coupon code I've got. That'll be working through, I think Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and you get 20% off with that one. But just this weekend, 25% off if you use the coupon code SMALL.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm all about that, man. Support small business, guys. I know I'll be checking out your website there, and I'd definitely be checking out a couple of these books, because I'm sure there's some awesome stories in there. John,
I'll say too, if there's there's books that you're interested in and everything, find out if the authors publish independently. Kenny Casanova, Ian Douglas, Scott Teal, of course, Crowbar Press. Buy from these guys direct. Most of our books are available on Amazon, but buy from us direct because we get more money. The wrestlers get more money. The folks we've written with, and whether it's through me or one of those guys, buy direct if you can.
That's what Mr. Romer said. He'll personally sign it too. And like B. Brian Blair, we had on his our show. And just real quick, I know, guys, Mr. Cosper, speaking of great stories, we had last week, Mr. Johnny Rods. The stories, and I'm glad he's going to come back because we just cut the iceberg with him. I mean, just great memories and stories.
Oh, yeah. He's somebody else that Dr. D talked very fondly of. And I mean, you look at the list of people he's trained too. I mean, Johnny Rods is another unsung hero in pro wrestling, and just a legend more people need to know about. So I'm glad he was on. Glad he's coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Yeah. Love to see a book about him someday. Yeah, no
doubt. I would too.
Yeah. Well, John, Mr. Cosper, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Falls Count Anywhere podcast today, sir. And we're definitely going to be checking out some of your books here because very intrigued by some of these and some of the stuff that, again, we just scratched the tip of the surface here with you. So we thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend, sir.
You too, guys. Have a happy holiday, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Same to you. Happy holidays, sir. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, gentlemen. Mr. John Cosper, great author there that, again, eatsleepwrestle.com. As he said, support small business. Go on the website. They got a discount available this weekend. If you want looking for maybe like a stocking stuffer or a gift for somebody, he's got some. And you're a wrestling fan. He's got some great wrestling books. So be sure to check that out. There's a huge list there on his website to check that out. So we're gonna check in with our sponsors here, guys, and then of course on the other side of that, we're gonna check in with the Iron Sheik. We got some clips as well from the vault that Chris is gonna open up. So we'll do that on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
Digits 988 can save a life. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides connection to free confidential support. There is hope. The Lifeline works. For 24/7 confidential support, just call, text, or chat 988.
All right, guys, welcome back. Falls Count Anywhere podcast. Charlie, John, and Chris all here. And again, thank you to Mr. John Cosper, author, who joined us today and talked some wrestling with us. We definitely appreciate him as well. John, we got to get some music on that Citizens United ad, man. You know, we got to get some
I know.
rock and roll in the background.
Yeah, a little break in the action. I don't know.
Yeah, it just kind of always throws me off. Like, are we back? Oh, no, it's United. Good thing. I don't know. It catches your eye in a different way, right?
Yeah, it does. It startles.
But make sure to check all those shows out. Spitballing Podcast, Citizens United, Robin Live. We got some great shows here on the Friends Network. And, of course, always check us out on YouTube. And be sure to subscribe. If you have a chance, just click that like button, the subscribe button. We'd appreciate it. But, guys, we got some wrestling to talk about. Just want a quick side note here. Of course, we got coming up on Friday, December the 2nd, SmackDown will be here in Buffalo. Tickets still available. So be sure to fill up the seats there and do Buffalo proud and be a lively crowd there. It's going to be the first show after the Survivor Series, which is going to take place tonight, pay-per-view, and it's going to be Survivor Series War Games, guys. Looking forward to that. First ever for the Survivor Series, where they're going to be including the War Games match. Of course, the main event, I would assume here, is going to be the Bloodline, which is going to be taking on Bloodline with Sami Zayn, which is going to be taking on the Brawling Brutes, along with Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens. So, Chris, I mean, I know you got a ton of footage of War Games from back in the day, WCW. It's always been a WCW thing. NXT did use it a little bit here and there. So what do you think, man? WWE using it now for Survivor Series?
I don't know why I was circling there, but yeah, it's quite interesting. Of course, well, since buying the WCW, they have that right to use that match and war games, if you will, a very brutal, dangerous match as we've seen over the years. And
blood, yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I think there's an issue there with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, though. I sense something's going to go on there, and it's great to see Bray Wyatt and what's going to develop there. And Triple H is doing good, and but also we want to mention tomorrow 5:00 on Fight TV. Is Ricky Steamboat's last match card, like we saw Ric Flair's last match card. So check that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That should be interesting. Again, that's on Fight TV. That's tomorrow at 5 p.m. It'd be interesting to see Steamboat back in the ring again after all these years. There were some rumors that maybe he was going to be the opponent for Flair. Of course, that never happened. That ended up being a tag team match, and Steamboat was not involved in that. But should be interesting to see. But the other match I wanted to mention about Survivor Series for tonight was the women's side of things. They've been building up pretty well here with Bianca Belair, Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim taking on Damage Control, Nikki Cross, and Rhea Ripley. I love what they're doing with the whole Nikki Cross angle. They kind of took away her superhero gimmick. They're trying to make her almost like the female Hurricane Helms. If you remember him, he had like that superhero gimmick. They were kind of doing that a little bit with Nikki Cross, ASH, the almost superhero gimmick. They've completely ditched that and gone back to like the maniac, unpredictable Nikki Cross, where she'll just kind of just flip out and just go off on people, which is awesome. They totally shed the superhero crap. She stood out to me because I think what they've done with her is great. But I don't know if you guys have seen this, but and Rhea Ripley also being on the card. Rhea Ripley showing up at the front door of Rey Mysterio's house on Thanksgiving. Rhea Ripley showed up with Dominic Mysterio. And if you haven't seen this, if you go to WWE's social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you'll see it there. But Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, who's of course now part of the Judgment Day, showed up at Rey Mysterio's house while they were having Thanksgiving dinner. He basically opens up the front door. They go in and they beat the crap out of him in front of his family and leave him laid out on the living room floor there and take off, which, I kind of like the fact that WWE is doing some of these things off television to where you go to their social media, you see a clip like that. Also, there was a thing with Bray Wyatt where somebody decoded a phone number. And if you call this phone number, it was an 888 number. I don't have it handy here, but if you call it, actually, I do have it handy here. It's pretty funny because it's like a psychiatric evaluation. There's like a doctor on a recording talking about, well, he hides behind a mask and I don't know what to assess about him. And you really don't know who he's talking about. Is he talking about Uncle Howdy? Is he talking about Bray Wyatt? And then the message just kind of cuts off, like kind of eerily, like somebody interrupts it in the background. Anyway, I just think it's pretty cool. The number, if you want to call it, I called it this morning. It's pretty funny. Pretty cool. 888-280-3999. That's 888-280-3999. If you call it, you get like some weird Bray Wyatt stuff going on there. So I don't know. I like that. The Crash the Thanksgiving Party for Rey Mysterio, calling a number for Bray Wyatt. I kind of like the interactive stuff they're doing.
Yeah, I think Triple H is doing very well. Glad to see it and look forward to the future.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, guys, it wouldn't be a Falls Count Anywhere podcast if we didn't check in with the Iron Sheik and the weekly Sheik tweets. Of course, he had some thoughts on some things in the world today, including Thanksgiving and the World Cup. Let's go ahead and fire it up there. John, what do we got? The first one there. Okay, and a happy Thanksgiving indeed. And the Sheik wishes a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. All his American friends, except for that piece of shit Hulk Hogan who go F himself forever. So no holiday love there from the Sheik to Hulk Hogan, which even on the holidays, he will still humble that jabroni.
That's right.
Thank God. That's great.
Let's see.
Gotta love it. And then I don't know if you've ever seen this clip. This one, this is a classic clip from when Mean Gene there, of course, you could see interviewing the Sheik. And there was some turkey going on in the cage there, and the Sheik has it around the neck. And he says he can beat the fuck out of that jabroni turkey with my little finger. I'll tell you what, there's some outtakes, too, on YouTube of Mean Gene and the Sheik where they just Mean Gene can't even keep a straight face half the time with the Sheik. The guy's freaking hilarious, man.
That is great. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
We saw that, right, John? That was great.
That was unbelievable. The whole damn thing. He's the best.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then, of course, we got the World Cup going on this week. Team USA, the Sheik we know is from Iran, but has been a U.S. citizen for forever now. He says, go USA or go F yourself, Team USA, on the hashtag there. Guys, are you watching much World Cup? Are you soccer fans? Or football?
Not really.
I paid attention to game 1 against Wales. I only saw the part of the last half. Yesterday I didn't see anything, so I was watching hockey.
Yeah.
But interesting for the Iron Sheik, Tuesday, the United States plays Iran. So that'll be interesting tweeting.
Yeah.
I wonder what he'll say. That'll be
it'd be interesting to see, he's proud to be an American, but he's also proud of that Iranian heritage of his too. So,
and the USA has to win if you care about that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And John, go ahead and take this one, man. I know you're a big Maple Leafs fan, and the Maple Leafs organization suffered a loss. Legendary player there. Go ahead and read that one if you want, buddy.
Yeah, yesterday, shockingly, Boreas Salming, and this is what the Iron Sheik says, Boreas Salming, you always make me happy when I come to the Maple Leaf Gardens. I love you and miss you forever. So yeah, Boreas Salming, quickly, 1974, he comes into the league as the first European player ever, Swede, all that. He took a beating. If you ever watch anything, the Flyers and the Bruins used to beat him, hit him over the head with sticks, break his punch, everything you could think of. But he took it as a Swede. They used to call him the Chicken Swede. Well, anyways, one of the greatest players, defenseman of all time. He had, unfortunately, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And just 2 weeks ago was Hall of Fame weekend in Toronto for the Hall of Fame inductions. And he came there, and they did a whole thing with him. And I think from what I'm reading, they knew he was going to die on that. I think being over in Sweden, I think he might have, I think he knew what was coming. They knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, that was kind of cool. One of my favorites. The reason why I like the Leafs is him and Daryl Sittler. So,
very cool for the Iron Sheik to throw out some love there, and of course, talking about the Maple Leaf Gardens that we talk about.
Yeah.
Some of the great wrestling over the years there back in the day. So yeah, rest in peace. That's unfortunate. And of course, we've seen former wrestling commentator and part-time wrestler Mongo McMichael, Steve McMichael, a former Chicago Bear, battling ALS, who we continue to send our prayers to. It's a tough battle, man. I mean, it's you think about it. Lou Gehrig had it almost 100 years ago, and there's still really no cure for it, and it's a scary thing, man. But rest in peace to Mr. Salmi, because that's a very sad thing there. But Sheik, giving him some love, so we appreciate that. But guys, also we want to transition. We have our what we're doing now on this show is our weekly Falls Count Anywhere match of the week. And, I'll tell you guys, this is our Falls Count Anywhere match. I'm specifically looking at Falls Count Anywhere matches for our show. Kind of goes with our theme here a little bit. One of the matches I pulled up here, this is from 2015. I didn't even know this wrestling organization existed. Sometimes you're combing through YouTube, you're down different rabbit holes. But this was from MLW. And this was Melbourne Championship Wrestling, MCW, I'm sorry. Melbourne Championship Wrestling. This was Dakota Kai, who was at that point known as Evie, taking on Kelly Skater. This was back in 2015. Now this match, there's a couple other photos there, John. This match ended up going outside. Yeah, I mean, there's people they're out in the neighborhood here. This was about a 12-minute match. I ended up watching the whole thing. These two just beat the crap out of each other for 12 minutes. They went through tables. They were at concession stands. They were outside. They kicked the crap out of each other, and it was Dakota Kai, or Evie at the time, who ended up getting the win in that match over Kelly Skater. But man, very cool. And Dakota Kai, of course, is going to be part of the Survivor Series pay-per-view tonight with Damage Control. So that was one of her first matches starting out. If you get a chance, YouTube it up. Again, Dakota Kai or Evie versus Kelly Slater, 2015 from MCW. In a Falls Count Anywhere match that truly ended up out in the streets and then back into the arena.
Wow, I know that kind of makes me think, guys. We drive around the city here, right? And we see the Metro bus buses and their plastic seats that people can sit on. Can you imagine seeing somebody get slammed on that? That would be crazy.
Well, right. On a daily basis, we kind of do where we live, unfortunately. But
yeah,
it's not a promotion, though. It's
somebody passed out on the bench or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah, good stuff. So I'll tell you, the Falls Count Anywhere stuff, some of these matches I never knew existed. So it's cool to find some of these things. So check that out on YouTube if you get a chance. But gentlemen, of course, the meat and potatoes of our show is our classic wrestling vault, which Mr. Chris DiCarlo here, of course, has an endless vault of wrestling classic footage. Go ahead and take it away, Chris.
Yes, as we do each and every week here, we say our disclaimer is that I do not sell any of these clips or DVDs in my personal collection to no one. We enjoy them as friends, and we use them here on our show. That has been a mainstay. And John, let's roll it.
All right.
Speaking of our guest from last week, Mr. Johnny Rods here, guys. Look at, there he is as Java Rook.
Look at Piper.
But yeah, Mr. Piper did all the talking
and
for
there's
him.
a young Piper there that he was talking about.
Yes. This is like late 70s out of the LA territory.
Yeah,
here.
he addressed this during the interview we did with him about how he did the whole headgear and everything. Yeah.
Chavo Guerrero's crying.
He specifically wanted Piper because he knew Piper was a good talker even back then.
Yep. Oh, and here he is. Speaking of our guy, right? We got two guys here.
Yeah.
Gary Michael Capetta introducing Johnny Rods. And there was, he mentioned his famous striped tights, and there he is against the Iron Sheik. But we were just talking about this one here.
Yeah. He was always so disgusted. Look at him.
the great announcer, Joe McHugh there. Uh-oh. Yeah. Look at his opponent.
Yeah. See, I mean,
here comes the one and only.
Yes. And this match, this match is a classic indeed.
The ropes are at his waist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the size of Andre, man, always just.
Johnny Rods' face never changes. Look at him.
Yeah, and here's another famous introduction from Howard Finkel and Rods' opponent coming down the aisle. We all know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Wow.
And then here he is, Arnold Skolin, inducting Mr. Rods into the WWE Hall of Fame.
My mother and I were wrestling fans. Every week.
It was a different ceremony back then. This was 96. It's not what they do now, but you see Vince right there, which is cool.
Yeah, and then, of course, a clip of Mr. Rods, the famous trainer that he is in his gym and school there. And,
oh, man, he's not taking it easy on these guys, I'll tell you. And then here he was appearing with JL and Briscoe, right there, Chris?
Yes, that's where I saw it, and
Chris kind of cut out there. Yeah, Drew Briscoe and JBL, of course, had him on the show, and
yeah, that was great.
You know, check that out because they had some good stories on that. He was on for about 90 minutes, I believe, with them.
Yeah, it was a long show. It was great, and that made me reach out to him and get him on our show. And we're of course happy and thrilled that he was, and get a lot of great feedback from that show last week, Mr. Rods.
Absolutely.
And look forward to
we're humbled to be able to talk to Hall of Famer, man. No doubt, that was very cool.
Yeah, and John, let's roll it. We got two more. Here we go. Talking about the territories, right? And here's some guys, Portland wrestling, the Portland territory, the Portland, Oregon there.
Oh, I love this beginning.
This was kind of like their beginning and host, and
they took it so seriously. He might as well be Kurt Gowdy doing NFL. Look at him.
Yeah.
This is great. I mean, look at this is unbelievable.
Oh, and the classic matches they had there over the years are just crazy.
Oh,
Look at that
Speaking
suit.
of which,
Look at the suit on the ring announcer. That's a great
yeah,
jacket.
that's a
yeah, but here's
The Don Cherry looking.
also
jacket.
the Rick Martel.
oh wow.
The ring announcer there, guys, was actually the owner of that territory, Portland. Mr. Owens. Can't think of his first name, but he was also the owner.
Look at the ref, but
Is that
Oh,
the
my.
referee just like walking out the
yeah, like
game?
he had some velour shirt on.
What the hell is he wearing? Yes, throw on whatever you got. Anything with stripes on it.
And then there's a famous robe.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Love that robes.
Man, and they talk about the weight of those robes too, man. That one that Flair's wearing. The
Yeah.
weight alone is just. Wow.
Oh, there he is. A young hot rod here too.
Do we know what belt that is, there, Chris?
That was probably I believe they called it Northwest Pacific Champion, the Portland Territory Champion.
Okay, I never seen that title belt. That's pretty cool.
But yeah, they were kind of famous there.
It's a young,
With the ring and the red ropes and everything. And then, of course, a young Jimmy Snuka. I mean, the who's who went through these territories, over the years back then.
Paul Orndorff?
And here, Portland, there is a young Kurt Hennig against Buddy Rose.
Wow. Wow, I'll say it's definitely a young Kurt Hennig. Holy cow.
That's awesome.
Portland
Very
wrestling
cool, man.
was a
Very
great,
cool.
great
Portland
territory.
That's one I'm not too familiar with. Yeah.
Lot of classic matches there. A lot of who's who was there. Andre the Giant. I mean, there's more footage, of course. But John, I believe we got one more. Here's another one, guys. A classic opening to Southeastern Championship Wrestling.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, look at this.
Gotta love this.
Back then, right?
I love it. Yeah,
Love the classic intros.
me too.
Wow, look at that. Yeah.
I wonder if we thought it was cool back then. I don't remember.
Well, I mean, this is like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here's a different opening of I think, from 80. And they had a who's who go through that territory as well. I wish there was a lot of footage of this out there.
Wow.
They kind of used, back to studio wrestling, where like Portland was kind of like out of a building.
Right.
But this was the classic studio approach.
This was before they tried to have it.
Wow. Yeah.
These guys couldn't be any more boring. Look at them two.
And then they're another host of Southeastern, well-known host. There was Mr. Charlie Platt.
Nice.
But of course, you
He was
see,
not available back then.
even the footage is old. It's not the greatest. So
Oh, look
there he
at
is.
Not in 4K, unfortunately.
Look at this.
Flair, hey man, anytime you see him, he never lack confidence. Look at him.
The best.
He's in this guy's ear. Look how great he is.
The 10 pounds of gold in tow.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
Austin Idol, John.
Oh wow. Wow. Oh, who's that? What? What the? That's great.
So I mean, that's what I mean. There's so much.
Oh, there's like a trophy next to him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
That's gonna get busted over
Flair in
someone.
there talking.
Yeah, he's got a stick
Oh, no,
there.
that's not Flair.
some mask guy there. I mean, there's so many guys too that I don't know that I've gone through all these territories, but the footage is just classic.
Great. Yeah.
That
Awesome.
was not Billy Burrito. That was not Billy Burrito.
No.
One of my favorite names from these clips that we've had on the show, man. But I always all these different territories. Talk about Portland, and then of course we had we were talking about the Louisville territory there with Mr. Cosper, and what's so cool about that, and of course going back to Andre the Giant, is we saw Andre in that clip there. Anytime he made an appearance and he was in a territory for whether it was a week or 2 weeks, it was such a draw to that territory, man. Just really cool to see Andre kind of touring the country and the the notoriety he brought to wrestling just on his sheer like size and aura of him. It's pretty cool.
Let me ask you two guys: did you ever see Andre live? Did you guys?
I have.
I did.
Did you? I never did. Where at Buffalo or here?
Actually, at the convention center, which is now the casino, the convention center here in Niagara Falls. And I remember having it was floor seats, maybe the 7th or 8th row. I remember we were right on the aisle, and he was wrestling Big John Studd that night. And I remember both of them walking. I still remember them walking by, and just remembering how in awe, how big both of them were. Big John Studd was 6'10", and of course you got Andre at 7'4". Just very cool to see in person. From what I remember, I was maybe 10, 11 years old, but I still remember him walking down that aisle, man. Just a huge presence, man. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, John, I saw him at the Buffalo Memorial Auditorium in 1984 when he had the big hair there before they shaved it off. And then I seen him in 88 at the convention center, as Charlie mentioned, when he was when Andre played the heel. But I mean, when you see these guys in person compared to the TV, even like Kevin Nash, and I mean they're so huge in person, really.
Yeah, Kevin Nash, good, like 7 foot, 7'1". That's not a small guy either. Yeah.
No.
And the Big Show, the Giant. I mean, another one.
Yeah.
The one guy I would have loved to have seen live is Giant Gonzalez. I mean, that dude. I mean, he was almost 8 feet tall. I mean, that was just ridiculous. He didn't have as much girth as Andre, but man, I mean, at 7'8" or 9, I think he was just absolutely huge.
Yeah,
and of course he had those matches with the Undertaker back around WrestleMania 9, WrestleMania 7, I should say. But yeah, that was WrestleMania 9. But yeah, very cool, man. As always, the classic footage, Chris, is great, man. Appreciate it as always. And some of the guys that it's surprising that there might be a guy or two that you don't know in there, which is like the masked wrestler, and so very, very cool stuff. But guys, of course, we got to check in with our jabroni, our ham and egger, our jobber of the week here on the Falls Count Anywhere podcast. And of course, we say that respectfully with love, as our jobber of the week this week is Mr. Raven Clark. Quote the Raven nevermore. Here's your original Raven. Wow. And now they did change his name to Raymond Clark when he showed back up in WWF in 1998. They probably didn't want to conflict the two Ravens. You'd have a Raven versus Raven match. I think we know how that would go. But Raven Clark here had a career record of 0-9 over a 5-year span from 1993 to 1998. His final match losing on Monday Night Raw to King Kong Bundy in 1995. Put a bow on. No, I'm sorry. That did not wrap up his career, but that was one of his last matches, one of his most famous matches, I guess, because it did appear on Monday Night Raw. Again, this was the early days of Monday Night Raw, 95 against King Kong Bundy. But his career ended back in 1998 when he was Raymond Clark back in the Attitude Era there. So yeah, Mr. Raven Clark, our jobber of the week. Didn't have much information on where he was from, but again, an 0-9 record, unfortunately. But doing the job, man, and putting the guys over that needed to be put over back in the day. But guys, I'll tell you, we had another fun show today with Mr. Cosper. Really enjoyed that. We got some other shows lined up, of course, down the pipeline here as we approach 2023. We got some things going on. Next week, we'll be sure to recap some Survivor Series action, the War Games. Interested to see what happens on that tonight. And we'll also recap the Ricky Steamboat return to the ring on Fight TV as we look forward to that as well. But John, do you have any public service announcement here we want to give to the people?
Yep. This week it's the human trafficking hotline, 888-373-7888. A lot of things go on and all over the world. Just please, if you see something in your community that looks odd to you, just call this number. You guys all know what I'm talking about with human trafficking. When it comes to seeing, you see a prostitute out on the street, you see, all kinds of stuff. Just please call this number if anything seems weird to you. 888-373-7888. You could save probably, hundreds of lives. And because there's a lot of people out there that are kind of in the shadows that they're not even accounted for. So if you see something, say something to these people. It's not a police report. It's nothing. They just take your information and they go with it. So 888-373-7888.
Yeah, stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. It's a crazy world we're living in today, guys. Violence throughout this country and unfortunately human trafficking. So yeah, it's very important information, John. We thank you for that. But gentlemen, as we wrap up here, any final thoughts? Anything you're looking forward to for Survivor Series tonight? Of course, we also got the U.S. title being defended tonight in a three-way match with Seth Rollins. So that should be interesting. And anything specific you're looking forward to tonight, or just going to be sitting back and enjoying it?
Yeah, just gonna check it out, see what happens with Bray Wyatt as always.
LA Knight, yeah.
Definitely something going on there with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But real quick, of course, we don't want to ever forget, and we want to thank all our fans on all our platforms on Twitter. Here we go, at Count Anywhere. That is growing, and thank you for all our followers on Twitter. Of course, our Facebook is where our home base is, of course. And our YouTube channel is growing. Friends with the Z there, Media Network. You can not only see our show here, Falls Count Anywhere, but you can see all our shows with John and Robin and the sports. It's all great. And thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Much appreciated to everybody that's added us or has followed us or followed the show. We appreciate each and every one of you, and shout out to Bumps and Thumps podcast as well for sharing our content. And I will proudly and gladly share theirs as well on my Facebook page. I'm sure we will as well, gentlemen. But again, thank you, gentlemen, for another great show, another great podcast here for Falls Count Anywhere. Charlie Turner, John Restaino, Chris Carlo. Thanks, gentlemen. Have a great weekend, huh?
Take care, everybody.
See you next week.
Digits 988.